Hi, my name is Lorraine Watry and welcome to my studio. I am a watercolor artist and I've worked with watercolor for 26 years now, and I thought I would start a new series of videos where I go over different tips, tricks, and techniques for working with watercolor. And hopefully these short videos will help you in your journey, and if you have a question or a technique that you would like to see, please comment below and I will try to accommodate that in a future video. Today's tip and trick video is going to go over how I start a painting. So when I am working from either my sources or from a customer's sources, I will either use the image exactly as it is, or sometimes I have to adjust things in the image so that it is compositionally good. So this is actually a customer's photo, and I am working with two images that they sent me and kind of combining them. So in the top image, this is the main photo that I decided to go with, and I wanted to give more information around the landscape of this cabin. And so I used some information from the bottom photo to give me a little more information what's going on in the landscape. And also sometimes images can be not quite straight, or there may be something in the image that you need to adjust. So whenever you're looking at either your own images or an image that you get from somewhere else, just look at it with a critical eye on if there are things that need to be adjusted. So then what I did was I took the image and I printed it out, the size of the final painting, and then I went in and started adding the edges to the shapes that were already there for the tree, for the clouds, that kind of thing. And then I started looking at the bottom image of the cabin, and it is from a slightly different angle, but the idea of where the trees are and kind of some of the other things in the landscape worked well. And so I added in some rocks. I gave myself sort of a few lines here and there to remind me that the land is kind of at an angle down, and can't see it really in this photo so much, but there were a few smaller trees off to the edge of that one, and so I added some of that in as well. Then once I had that all figured out, then I did a drawing for the final painting and kind of got all of that figured out. And I always work from my drawing, and then I use a light table to transfer the drawing to the watercolor paper. And you can also use a very lit window, or you could use graphite transfer paper. And I have a video that talks about using my light table, and I will try to link it above, and how I transfer the drawing as well is on that same video. Sorry. How I transfer the drawing is on that video, and how I stretch my paper is on that video. So then once I have the drawing and I have transferred it to my watercolor paper, now I have to decide, is there any masking that I need to do? And this watercolor paper is 140-pound Arches watercolor paper, and I use stretching as a method to attach it to my board and keep it from buckling as much. If you're new to watercolor paper, if you're using 140-pound watercolor paper or less, some student grade paper is thinner than that, and also some brands offer a lighter weight paper. That paper of 140 pounds or less will tend to want to have ripples and buckle a little bit when you're painting on it. So I stretch my paper, and I also have a video talking about that. And so once it is stretched and dry, and I have put some masking tape over the stapled edge just to hold it a little better, Then I have to decide if I'm going to mask anything. You don't want to mask prior to prior to the paper being dry. So I do know there are a few flowers that I've put down in the grass area, and there are on the image, there are some places like around the windows where the casement of the window is white or lighter. I did remove, there's some object back here and another thing back in the background, and I decided that did not need to be in the image, and so I've pulled those out. And there's a lot of it looks like it's a early spring, maybe it's a little drier in the foreground, so I'm going to make it look more grass-like and put some flowers in a few places that would be kind of wildflower that would go with that cabin. So I do want to mask a few things prior to doing the painting, and I will go ahead and mask those, and I'll speed that section up, and then I'll come back and show you how I start the painting. So I have finished putting the masking fluid on, and then a couple other things that I might do prior to doing the painting would be to do a small color study, and sometimes they are maybe 4 by 6 or 2 by 3, something like that, or I might even do one this size as my color study, depending on how involved the painting is, if I haven't done a painting like that before. And basically a color study is a way to get an idea of what you're doing first, second, third, what your techniques might be, what colors you might be using. And it doesn't have to be as detailed as the actual painting, but it gives you an idea of what you want to do before you actually jump in to do your painting. And then the other thing that I will do is sometimes I will take a piece of watercolor paper and I will just get my colors out, because maybe I've done a painting like this one before, and so I just need to get an idea of what colors I might be using. I am getting out the colors that I will be using for the sky, which is cobalt and some cerulean and a touch of the quin rose. And when I start a painting, generally I start in the background, and a lot of the time I will start from the top of the painting and work down, but it depends on what I'm painting. And I will often protect my center of interest, which could be a close-up of a flower or a bird or something else, and paint around it and get a lot of the background first layers on. And sometimes I will actually finish the background before I start some of the foreground objects. So I am going to paint this sky wet and wet, and I have the 3 colors out, and then I'm going to put water on my paper, and the clouds are very light on the paper, and so I'm just painting some water kind of up to their edges, and if it goes over a little bit, that's okay, partly because that gives the feeling of soft edges here and there. And there's a little bit of the blue peeking through down here. and some down on this edge as well for the sky. Yeah, okay. And then as I come across over here, I just want to be careful around the roof line. And there's a little bit of blue right up in there. So basically, I'm getting wet wherever I will be applying the sky to the paper. And what the water does is, if you are painting a larger painting, it gives you more time to get across that area. And if it is a softer edged or soft focus area, then the water will also give you that kind of out of focus look to that. And but it will add water to your mix. So if you're painting something where you want it a certain value, you may have to adjust how much color you're putting on so that it will have the right value for you. And you can always come back and add color later if you want to add another layer, but sometimes it's easier just to do it in the beginning. All right, so I'm liking some of the edges that are happening here. I like that edge right there, so I'm not necessarily going to paint the cloud exactly as I see it in the photograph. Go across to this side with that kind of purpley blue. So I'm using the cobalt and the Quin Rose for the purple blue. Put just a touch up in here. And I want my edges to have some hard and soft edges to them, so I'm letting some of those harder edges happen. And I can always come back and soften them if I need to. And right now I'm not trying to put in any shadows on these clouds. I'm just working with what I see. Okay, and a little bit of the cerulean in that mix. So as I'm coming down in the sky, I am adjusting the blue just a little bit so that there's some of the cerulean in the mix, and then as I get down toward this area, I will start to do more and more cerulean. And there are some blue areas in the trees. Actually, I need to just go straight into the cerulean in a few places here. And then as I get down toward this bottom, I am lightening. There's a little bit. I need to go back and use my brush. I have dried my brush just a little bit, and I'm using it as kind of a sponge to lift some of that area that was wanting to pool, and it could push back and cause a back run or a bloom. So then down here at where I'm working right now, I let it be lighter right there because I want it to look like it's going back down toward the horizon. And remember, I said that as you go toward the horizon, your color in your sky gets a little more turquoisey and a little lighter because there's more atmosphere between us and the horizon at that point. All right. Trying to go around those edges for the trees. And this is mostly the cerulean blue at this point. Maybe a touch of cobalt in it. Okay, so there's one or two areas that I am going to play with while it's still slightly wet. And one is this shape right here. It's making kind of an unusual shape, and I could wait till it's dry and go in and mess with it just a little bit and lift here and there. But as long as I don't add too much water back to the page, as long as my brush is just a little damp, I can come in and adjust that edge so that that little line that was there with the white part of the cloud will disappear. And then I thought I saw, yeah, like right in here, I'm going to use my brush just slightly damp again. Okay, so I'm happy with it where it is at this stage, and instead of continuing to try to make adjustments, actually I think I will lift a little bit right there though. I'm going to pause and let that continue to go, and the next thing I would do then here would be to add in some color for the grass. So I will speed that section up, and basically the idea is when you're starting a painting is to get color going kind of everywhere. And it depends on what you're painting, because I do know some artists that if they're doing something very detailed like glass or metal, reflections, that kind of thing, they might actually work on one area and get that whole area pretty much painted before they move on to the next section, because it's easier than trying to figure out where you are, what you need to do next, all of that. So for this kind of thing though, for landscape, I tend to get color sort of going everywhere, and that is the best way for me, because I work in layers and it gives me an idea of if I am getting the values the way I want them, if the colors are working together, and then as I work up the painting, I can get I get an idea if I need to adjust my values anywhere. So this painting will continue as a layer by layer painting for me, and I hope the idea of how to start your painting was helpful, and that I will be continuing with layers and in general just working your painting up slowly and getting an idea of how the values are working together and the different parts, doing a color study prior to your painting, or doing some color swatches to give you an idea of what colors you might want to use can be very helpful. And so I hope you will try some of those things, and I hope you have a good day and stay creative. And if you have other tips and tricks or techniques that you would like to see in watercolor, please comment below, and if you'll like and subscribe, that'll help get these videos out to others that would like to see them. Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.